All right, last problem, we're going to look at our compounding. And on this one, we're going to compound daily. So we chose an N of 365 since there are 365 days in a year. And again, we're looking at how many years would it take for an account that earns 5% interest to earn $600 if it starts with 2,500. And since we're compounding, I'm going to use the formula A is equal to P times 1 plus R, my rate, over my N compounding to the NT. Both N and T are in the exponent there. And remember, make sure you divide by N. Don't divide by T down there. That's a mistake a lot of them are making. On this one, just like the continuous, our A is going to be our interest plus our principal, because A is how much we want in the account. So we want there to be $3,100 in the account. Our P, that's still that $2,500, how much we're going to start with. Our rate says 5%, so I'm going to use 0.05. N is our compounding, that's our 365 since we're doing it daily. And then T, that's what we're still trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out how much time it's going to take for this to happen. So filling in my formula, I have the 3,100 is equal to my 2,500 times 1 plus my rate, so 0.05 divided by the 365. Close my brackets. Move over a little bit so I got a little bit more room there. And then in my exponent, 365 for my N. And then, of course, I've got a T up there as well. And that's what I'm trying to find. So on this one, it's going to start off very similar to how we've been starting off on many of our continuously in our compounding problems. That 2,500, that's attached by multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it off the bat. Start it off with division. So go ahead and doing that. I'm going to do 3,100 divided by the 2,500. And that gets me the same 1.24 as what was in the last problem since it's the same division there. Now, before I move on, there's a lot of stuff going on over there on the other side. And now I've already taken care of this 2,500 right here. He's gone. But I noticed that there's this bunch of numbers in this parentheses right here. And even though I got to get rid of the T and I can't do anything with the exponent right now, that stuff in parentheses, I can simplify that with my calculator. That way I only have one number right there in the parentheses, making it a lot easier for myself to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. 1 plus the 0.05 divided by 365 for my days there. And what I come up with is 1.000, and it looks like 136. So I can't just use these zeros there. I always need to have some stuff after the decimal. I'm not going to get the right answer if I just use a 1 there. So I definitely need another decimal, but I like to have at least 2 numbers after all of those zeros. So I have a 3 and then a 6. So since there's a number greater than 5 after the 3, it needs to jump up to a 4. And then our 365 and our T there. So now here's where what we learned earlier in the week comes into play. We need to make sure that we can move that base over to the other side. And to do that, we have to use our logarithms. So if I want to move that base over to the other side, I need to move it over as a log. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to write it on the other side, but I have to write it with this log attached to it. And that 1.0014 actually becomes what's called the base of the log, because right now it's actually the base of the exponent over there. And when I write it over on the other side, what it does is it cancels it out. So it moves over here to the other side by becoming this log. And it still has that log, still has the 1.24 that was already over there attached to it. So 1.24. And then, of course, I still have on the other side the 365T. So now here's where I have to use my calculator to calculate that log on the other side. And if you remember change of base formula for Algebra 2, that's totally fine. You can utilize that. Okay, but what I need to do is I need to calculate this log. So I can do that by hitting the math button. And then I'm going to scroll down until I see the A. And the A next to it says log base. And what that's going to do is when I hit enter, when I'm on that A log base one, is it's going to put the log with a little box for me to put the base in and a little box for me to put the 1.24 in. And so I can fill that in on my calculator. And that's going to give me my next step when I type this in of 1,536.617. So that 7 bounces the 6 to a 2. Actually, I should probably use a couple more decimal places there just because that's not my final answer. So I'm going to go ahead and put a few more decimal places on there. I'm going to put 174, and then there's a 0 after it. So I'm just going to leave it as that. Okay, because there's a 4. Actually, it's a 4, 8. So let's use a 1 there since the 8 bumps the 0 up to a 1. Let's be correct here. And then, of course, on the other side, I have 365t. Let's move down a little bit. One last step now. I'm going to divide by the 365. Moving it all around on us here. Back to my pencil. Divide by the 365. Divide by the 365. And that gives me 4.209. So I'm going to go with 4.21 years. And if you remember in our last example, for continuous, it was 4.2. So it takes me just a tiny little bit longer. In fact, 100th of a year. 100th of a year, that's like 3 days to get that extra, or because the money doesn't grow as much for compounding daily as it grows for compounding continuously. So it takes me just 3 days longer to grow to that same $3,100. Make sure that now you go and you answer the questions that are attached to this assignment.